we are going to talk about being brief. Have you had the experience of standing in front of your judge and you feel like they aren't listening to you, or um, you don't understand why you can't get all your points across, or you don't understand why you feel like they let your ex or their attorney talk, but they don't let you talk? I'm guessing if you've had any of those experiences, one of the key issues is that you are not being brief. So here's what happens when we get in front of the court, okay? Especially for self represented people. But again, even if you have an attorney, this is a very nerve wracking process, right? And so that's why you hear me talk about go in, observe. Now with post COVID, so many courts have remote appearances where you can appear via video and all that. So there's lots of ways that you can observe, and you're allowed to observe. Family courts are public hearings. So occasionally they'll have something that they close off and say this is a private hearing for whatever reason. But the vast majority of them are public hearings. And so there's no reason that you can't go in and watch these. And so that's the very best way to get a feel for your judge and for what they want from you. But here's the other thing that it does. It puts you in that environment, right? It makes things start to feel familiar, because one of the problems with trying to be brief about something is if we're in an anxious state and our adrenaline is flowing and we're in this new environment and our body is doing that whole fight or flight thing, guess what happens? We ramble. Right? Am I the only one? Maybe I'm the only one here that happens to, but I would guess not. I would guess that this happens to a lot of us where we just start, and then it's like, okay, the judge is like, here I go again with another person that doesn't know how to be brief. And so putting yourself in that environment and observing what's happening makes it start to become familiar, and it decreases the anxiety and that fight or flight response, which will help you be in control of your emotions and not have this runaway mouth that just starts saying everything that pops into your head. I've had clients in the past that have come in that had an attorney that were then to the point where they were representing themselves because everything had gone on for so long. And so they then had gone into court representing themselves so many times that I've had people say, you know what? I don't really get nervous anymore. Like that just doesn't really happen for me. And so, that happens for attorneys too. Like the more they appear in front of the same judge in the same courtroom and all that, the more comfortable they become, the more confident they become. I've seen attorneys have nerves. I've gone into the courtroom and watched my husband Thomas and other attorneys be moving papers and their hands are shaking and everything from the nerves, from the stress of the situation. And that is amplified when you're in a courtroom you're unfamiliar with, or you're in front of a new judge or anything like that. So half of the ability to be brief is doing things that are going to help you control the emotional aspect of it. The other thing is, quality does not equal quantity, right? And I know we've heard this a lot of times, but in family law, this is so, so true. Because again, you need to educate yourself on what it is the court wants to know, what's important to them, what are the important factors. Because you guys, here's the thing, 90% of what we want to tell the judge isn't the important stuff, isn't the stuff that they're looking at to help them make their decision. We've gone through this whole emotional process with the other person, and we want to be heard. We want to be validated. We want to be told that how we feel is right. It's just, you go in and you just think, you're looking to be validated. That's not what the court's there to do. And frankly, when you try to do that, it works against you, and you're not going to come out with the result that you want. You're going to be disappointed by the court result. I can't tell you how many times that, Thomas, my husband, my late husband, has come back from a court appearance, and, me be on the edge of my seat of like, what happened? What happened? And when he tells me what actually happened in court, it's like, that's it? Like, that's all the judge said? Yep, this is this, we're done. So the judge isn't going to go through and say, oh, well, what the other person did was really jerky, or, oh, you had every right to leave this situation, or, good for you that you had the courage to do this or that. The judge isn't going to say any of those things, and they can't. They're there to be a neutral third party. They're not there to validate anybody's feelings. They're there to make specific decisions on the case. And, if you're in a case where you weren't married to the other parent, the only decisions are, what should the parenting plan be and how much support is there? And if you're in a divorce, it's what should the parenting plan be, how much support, and dividing the assets. And if you're in a community property state, that division's 50-50. So they're only there to make orders on very specific things. They're not there to decide who's a good person and who's a bad person. So this is why when we talk about having 3 to 4 key points, 4 maximum key points when you go into court, and being brief, and that doesn't mean you can't give an example or two of 1 or 2 of those points if you need to, if that's applicable. But those key points should be points that line up with the laws in your state that we know that the judge is looking at for the particular issue that's in front of them. So if you're in front of the judge for child custody, the court can't talk about support unless somebody filed and asked for the court to make a decision on support. The court can't just randomly make a decision on anything. They can only make a decision on what's in front of them. And so that's the other thing that will sometimes come into play is people will start talking about other things. They're in front of the court for a custody motion, and they start talking about the support issue, and the court's going to cut you off. The court's going to say, we're not here to decide that today, but you can file a motion on that if you'd like me to make a decision about that. And so this all comes back into being educated and knowing what the court wants from you so that you can understand what those key few points should be, and then really kind of giving a high level picture. Most courts decide things on the written declaration of the parties. And so you want to do your declaration. You still should keep that more brief than most people want to, I think. But you go in and the court has usually read that. And so you're not going in to regurgitate your whole written, declaration or affidavit again. You're there to just kind of give them a high level summary of like, here's what happened. Here's what we're asking for. Here's how that's applicable. And that way, you're not going down these rabbit holes of trying to give the court your whole life history of your entire relationship. And that's what most people want to do. Most people want to be heard and want the court to understand the whole life history of the relationship. And I'm telling you, nothing will lose your judge's attention faster or get you cut off. So if you get cut off once, here's what I'm going to tell you. Learn from it. Know that whatever you were going into, you shouldn't have. And sometimes what happens is we get cut off and then we get frustrated, right? And that fight or flight response comes in again. And then we almost become more argumentative and we want to give our story even more. But if the court is cutting you off in the first instance, then your brain needs to go, okay, I'm talking too much about that. I need to give shorter answers. I need to be more concise, and I need to focus more on what specific things the judge might be looking for and not be going into all these details. Because again, if they want details, they'll ask, right? If they feel like they're missing a piece of the puzzle that's going to affect their decision making, they're going to ask. And so being brief is real important. It builds your credibility. It'll keep you won't have a frustrated judge on your hands. And, if the other side is not being brief, well, then let that hurt them. But just because they do something doesn't mean you match it. Oh, they're not brief, so I'm not going to be brief. Well, no, now the court's just frustrated with both of you instead of just one of you. So if you want to get the upper hand, follow some of these tips, and that way you know how to conduct yourself and how to impress your judge when you're in the courtroom. If these videos are helpful, please hit like. Don't forget to hit subscribe so that you get notified as new videos come out each week. And you can always check out more information on me at divorceuniversityonline.com. See you guys next time.